alaikum and welcome to Press Pause with Jouhayna. On today's episode, I have Torkia Mahloul, and she is the co-founder and CEO of 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. Welcome.
Thank you, Jouhayna, for having me here today. I'm very excited about the podcast, actually.
Yes, I agree. Me too. I'm very excited to have you here. I feel like what we're going to speak about is somewhat of a taboo topic in the region, but I feel like it has to be spoken about. So that's why I was very excited to have you on the show. So can you take a moment to introduce yourself to everyone?
So my name is Torkia. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. I've been in the region for about 10 years, but originally I'm Algerian, raised and born in France. Mm-hmm. So I have this combination of West and East that's pretty defining me these days. And I'm very passionate about women's health and advancing women's health in this region.
So before we begin and really dive deep into the podcast, we're going to have a rapid fire round.
Okay.
So just tell me the first thing to pop into your head when I say a certain word. Ready?
Ready.
And year.
2013.
Emoji.
Happy.
Lunch.
Avocado salad.
Oh, yum. Happy place.
I would say Dubai.
Aroma.
I love vanilla candles.
Ooh, nice. Dream job as a kid.
Wanted to be an actress. I failed.
I feel like you have the look for it. Phone app.
Phone app. WhatsApp.
Bucket list item.
I want to go skiing. I would say exercise more. I want to probably change a little bit my diet and reduce chocolate. I want to go to Tulum. I want to go to, I think there are things that I want to go and visit. I want to spend more time in Algeria, and I want to spend more time with my family, actually, and visit my nephew.
Oh, inshallah, you will.
Yeah, inshallah.
How old is your nephew?
2 years this month.
I love that age.
Yeah, I love it too, because I don't have to deal with him on a daily basis. He's in Paris, so
okay.
I don't feel like I get the worst part of the terrible two, basically.
Fair. Exactly. I love auntie privileges. Like, I'm an auntie now, and I just love it.
I think you get the best of it, like the fun, and they love you, and you don't have to deal with the nonsense of the kid.
Exactly. It's the best part. So, ready to start?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. So the company that you have is 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. So can you tell us more about it? And I was curious to know why you called it 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞.
So it started with my personal journey. A couple of years ago, I was going through my own egg freezing journey. I was 34, find out about the importance of freezing before 35, and freaked out because I was nowhere close to being in a relationship.
Okay.
And I had to undergo multiple rounds of egg freezing, which inspired me to help women to get on that track early on in a proactive way, to get the best outcome, because I had to do multiple rounds of egg freezing to get to the number of eggs I wanted, something I could have probably avoided if I had started a bit earlier. And yeah, that's the reason why I started 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 with my co-founder, who was also a fertility guru, kind of. He's been leading some of the best and the largest network of fertility clinics in the region. And he's seen so many women like me coming to this journey a bit late when they have a problem, instead of like doing it when they're young and healthy. And 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞, first it was like the idea was to be focused on egg freezing, so ova, which means egg, and save, preserving, saving your eggs for the future. But now the name is cool and edgy, but the reality is we're doing way more than just egg freezing, because we realize that not every woman has a fertility journey, but every woman has a story, like a hormone story, like a maternity story, conceiving story, premenopause story, PCOS story. We go through so much from puberty to menopause. And the idea was to have that go-to platform to provide tools, education, access to care to women regardless of the condition or the life stage she's at.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So before I ask you many more questions, we are having a special part of the podcast where you ask me questions. So like OvaSave trivia.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a cue card in front of you with the questions you provided for you to test me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope
I'm ready.
you know most of this.
Yeah, I mean, I was being groomed to become a doctor, and I love biology in high school, so let's hope.
Okay, we're gonna test you today.
Yeah.
The first one is not that difficult. How many eggs do you think we're born with?
Like millions, but only like 500 or something are good to come out.
Millions. I think that's not bad actually. You're right. We're born with 1 to 2 million eggs.
Okay.
Which is a lot. But we start losing them before even we're born.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like we have a lot, but like the misconception is like you start losing them at puberty because you started having your period, but actually not.
Okay.
From the moment you are in your mom's tummy, you start losing those eggs.
Wow.
Yeah. So actually your mom was carrying you and her grandkids because you already had those eggs.
Oh, nice. So 3 generations.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
interesting. Okay.
That's cute, actually.
Next question. I'm ready. I'm learning.
Okay, I told you start losing them. So how much of your egg reserve you think you have left at 30?
I know this because I researched it for myself. About 90% is utilized, so 10% is left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, a lot of women now are getting married later in their 30s, sometimes after 35. And when they reach that point where they start their family, most of their egg reserve is gone. 90% is just gone. So that's the reason why it's important to think about fertility early on. Okay. Do you know what's a fertile window and how long it lasts each month?
So I know if you have a typical 28-day cycle, it's halfway through, so like day 14. And then I'm not sure how long it lasts though. Maybe it varies woman to woman, but I'm not sure how long it lasts. Maybe like 2-3 days.
A little bit more.
Okay.
But you're right. On the typical woman has a 28-day cycle, even if it's not always the case. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. But on average, it's 28. You ovulate on the 14th day, in theory, again, because, again, women go through so many things, are not necessarily regular with their cycle. And your fertile window is that window where you are able to conceive. And it includes the day you ovulate, 5 days prior to that, and possibly a day after. So that's the window, 6 to 7 days, including the day of ovulation, 5 days before and 1 day later. So you're not fertile the entire month. So not knowing what's your fertile window obviously does not help you if you're trying to get pregnant.
Yeah, I always thought it was ovulation day and then everything after.
No, actually,
I didn't realize it was before that.
Yeah, it's before and slightly after.
Okay.
That's a good one. How long, on average, does it take for a woman to be diagnosed with PCOS?
This I have no idea, even though I think maybe when you realize you have symptoms, then you go and get a checkup and then you find out.
So many women have PCOS, like about 13 to 15% of women have PCOS, so it's not like uncommon. But actually, the research has shown that it takes on average 2 years for women to be diagnosed properly.
Oh, wow.
And about 3 consultations. So it's not like you show up and you discuss your symptoms and the healthcare system immediately understand that it's PCOS and you get like diagnose. It can take a lot of time, and in the meantime, we're dealing with a bunch of symptoms, acne, hair loss, irregular periods, and all of that. So it shows like how long a woman need to challenge things to get the answer she deserves.
Yeah, I agree, because for me, it was one appointment. That was it. I went for a routine checkup, and she's like, you have the issue. She called me. She's like, everything looks fine, but you have PCOS. Bye.
How did you get diagnosed? Like, did you bring up the symptoms you had, or it was just out of the blue and a complete surprise to you had PCOS?
It was a complete surprise, because I thought with PCOS, I was gaining and losing a lot of weight, and it kept fluctuating, but I just thought it's because I'm a shift worker, which probably is one of the contributing factors. But I just went for a routine checkup. I was like, oh, let's just see what's going on. And then this is what she said to me. We did a check, and then afterwards there was a blood test as well. So I don't know where the result came from, but she just called me and said that. And I was like, all right. And she's like, well, you're already on birth control, and that would be my recommendation to manage the symptoms. And that was it. So I just continued taking the birth control I was on, and that was it.
That's interesting, because a lot of women don't like that solution, go on birth controls, because it's taking hormones that you don't necessarily want to take. And there should be other solutions. And actually, did she suggest any lifestyle changes? Did she, do you have a routine kind of check every year to see where you're at, or how does that work?
Well, I go once a year anyway. So she's like, all right, I'll just see you next year. And that was it. So it didn't really feel like a lot. And I knew what PCOS is anyway. And it runs in the family. So when I told my mom, she said to me she wasn't surprised. And that was it. It wasn't like I felt bad about it or anything like that. And, I was already married, so I was on birth control anyway. And that was it.
But does that worry you for your fertility? Because it's one of the causes of infertility. Is it something you think about, or okay, you just leave it to whatever's going to happen is going to happen?
Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But also, I've met a lot of women, because I was always the youngest in the room with the career that I'm in. So a lot of the women that I've met who are expats who are working where I work, there was one lady who I knew, and she had 3 kids, and she had PCOS, and she's like, well, I managed, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. So I was like, oh, and you have 3 kids who are great. So I just was like, all right, we'll just see what happens. And I think I was mid-20s when I found out. So I was like, oh, I'm not planning on having kids anyway. Free birth control. So that's how I took it. Choose to see the positive side, but maybe it's a little bit naive.
Obviously, women who have PCOS can get pregnant, but the path can be more challenging than the average woman. And it's still something to keep in mind, especially because we're all dealing having children, kind of.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You ready for the next one?
Yes.
How long before menopause does a woman's hormone level start to change?
I'm not sure, but I think it's a couple years, because of what I've observed being raised in a mostly women household. Maybe 5 years.
It varies, but typically that phase where your hormones fluctuate and you start having symptoms can start up to 10 years before menopause.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's a whole decade of your life.
Yeah.
In perimenopause. It's not something that we should neglect, in my view, because the average age of menopause is 51.
Okay.
So, if this starts 10 years before, you are in your early 40s, 41 and above. And sometimes for some women, it starts even earlier, late 30s. So it seems like menopause is far ahead, but actually perimenopause can be, for some of us, just around the corner. And it's the beginning of the symptoms, the hormones changes, and sometimes not understanding what's going on with your body. It's just driving you crazy.
Yeah.
So yes, testing, understanding your cycle, not dismissing some symptoms, speaking to some experts it's really important to possibly also make the life adjustments that will help you cope with it.
And what would be some symptoms to look out for?
They are pretty common to menopause symptoms like night sweats, hot flashes, brain fog, sometimes acne.
Okay.
So all of these things that are related to your hormones, irregular periods as well, will just like arise in your 40s, late 30s, early 40s.
Interesting. Good notes. Next question. Ready.
What is the world record for the longest frozen embryos to result in a live birth?
I would say 25 years, because quarter century is a mind-blowing number, in my opinion. They froze their eggs in their early 20s, and then they had the kids in their mid-40s. So that was my logic.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So actually, in 2022, there was a birth of twins coming from an embryo frozen 30 years before.
30 years?
Yeah.
So I was close.
Now, you were close, definitely, but I was asking the question actually because so many women ask me how long can I keep my eggs, my embryos frozen?
Yeah.
And there is the regulation answer and there is the scientific answer. So in the UAE, you can freeze your eggs up to 10 years. But in practice, like even if you freeze them longer, and now we've seen that with those births, you could have a birth 30 years later from an embryo that you've frozen today. So it shows how science has evolved to preserve your fertility for probably, in most cases, way longer than you need it.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is a mind-blowing number. Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the next one. That should interest you if you haven't researched that. What is the link between PCOS and diabetes?
Well, diabetes has to do with insulin, so I'm assuming that's the correlation.
Yes, so that's the correlation exactly. So, like the root cause of for women who have PCOS is insulin resistance, which means that their body does not assimilate insulin, process insulin the way it should. And to compensate, the body produces more insulin.
Okay.
And over time, that leads to high sugar levels. And women who have PCOS are more at risk of diabetes because of those levels. So that's why there is managing symptoms, but there is also like obviously making some lifestyle changes to manage diet, lose weight, exercise, so that you prevent those risks from materializing. So that's very important for women who have PCOS and have hormonal imbalances to also think of this holistically, because there is just much more at stake than fertility and infertility. You also need to look after your health and prevent, for example, diabetes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Why do some women experience worsening PMS symptoms in their 30s and 40s, even if they didn't have severe symptoms when they were younger?
Would this relate to the first question where perimenopause?
Yeah.
So it comes, okay.
Yeah, that's the answer in short. But in the long answer is like that perimenopause phase is the phase where your hormones fluctuate significantly, like up and down, which will basically bring back some of the symptoms like acne, mood swings, irregular periods, hair loss, everything that's like PMS-like symptoms can be revived during perimenopause because your hormones go a little bit haywire.
Yeah. So exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to that phase, apparently.
Oh, yeah, that sounds intense already.
Yeah, I think I was reflecting recently on perimenopause and menopause because obviously it's something I dread as a woman, not only because of fertility, but also because it sounded like a small death when I was younger. And I think about women having menopause. It's like not being a full woman anymore, not being desirable, not being not having your reproductive capabilities anymore. And now the more I educate myself, I realize that we all gonna go through this life stage. And the more you're prepared, the more you're educated, the more you know what to expect and you know how to manage, the better you will embrace it. It won't become something that that will be imposed to you, but something that you go through with grace and understanding of your body. So yeah, it's very, I would say, scary, but like for me now, there is a better way to approach it, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. And, knowledge is power. And that's why this episode with you is focused on educating myself and every other woman who's listening and the men who are around women so they understand what it is that we are going through or would go through in the future.
I agree. Especially when you talk about your hormonal health and you tell the word hormones to a man, it means that you're on a crazy level. And I think it's interesting to remind ourselves and men around us that actually hormones are so important, have obviously fertility function, but also vital function.
Okay.
They manage your energy, your focus, your drive, your libido, your fertility. So we give them a bad reputation because when we think about hormones, we always think about imbalance. But when your hormones are in check, basically they work in your favor to rule every function in your body.
Exactly. I just play, I sent you the book I was listening to this morning to refresh my memory on the female anatomy. And I was playing it out loud and I'm like, my husband will listen and learn subconsciously.
I like that way of teaching.
Oh, yeah. He's just like, what are you listening to? He's like, oh. And then he's like, I don't want to listen to this. I'm like, deal with it. And then he learned quite a bit this morning. He's like, I didn't realize you would go through that. I'm like,
Then you cannot ask me anything about that on that day because... and the final question, why do women who have PCOS have more eggs than the average woman?
I thought it would be the opposite. This was my understanding because you just assume, wait, let me actually think about this. You have irregular periods with PCOS, so maybe it has to do with your eggs releasing. Maybe not all your eggs come out, so maybe that's why you'd have more.
That's exactly that.
Yeah, okay. I had to use logic. I was like, it took everything in me not to research your questions. I was like, I needed this to be authentic.
No, that's exactly that. Because you have a lot of the times excessive male hormones.
Okay.
Your body's hormones are not in check and your ovaries are not doing the typical job of releasing one egg per cycle, and all of these eggs will not be released, will accumulate, meaning that you have more eggs than the average woman. On the other side, doesn't mean that you have a better fertility, because when your hormones are not playing or not being used the way they're supposed to be used, then that impacts obviously your capacity to get pregnant. You're not ovulating. And two, it also impacts the egg quality, meaning that you have a higher number of eggs but less quality.
Okay.
So that's also something that mean for women who have PCOS that egg freezing could be a path to preserve some eggs at the good quality when they're still young.
Okay. So I have a group chat with all these ladies on it who are doing so much with their lives. And I told them that you're coming on the show today and everyone is excited. And I have questions for you from everyone.
Please.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, when should a woman consider egg freezing?
I would say early 30s, like
30s, okay.
30 to 35 is the best window, because your egg quality should still be good. As we age and we enter our 30s, egg quality and quantity dropped very fast, especially after 35. That's why doctors recommend to freeze before 35. But again, if you're barely 25, 26, 27, maybe you can give yourself a couple of years. So I would say the right window would be 30 to 35. Doesn't mean that if you're above 35, you cannot freeze.
Okay.
But that becomes more pressing, I would say, if you want to save a maximum of eggs at the best quality.
Okay. And can you do it earlier than that? I'm assuming yes.
Yeah, you can. Obviously, if you can afford it, if you're in the right mind space, the younger, the better. Like the younger the eggs are, the better quality they are.
Because I remember when I was 21, I like to think big picture always. So I was 21. I just finished my air traffic control training, and I was like, I want to travel, I want to live my life, everything. And then because I grew up around a family full of female doctors, I knew the importance of my egg health, you know? So I was like, I want to freeze my eggs when I was 21. And I did the research, and at the time I couldn't actually do it if I wasn't married and everything over here. So this is interesting to know because I feel like the rules have changed now.
Big time.
So if the rules were the way they are now, 8 years ago, I would have definitely taken that journey on, because I was like, I don't know if I never had the agenda of getting married. And, you know, I was like, no, thank you, but I wouldn't mind a child. So that was my, I'm very the opposite as a woman when it comes to that thought process of what's expected of me. Because I was like, I want to freeze my eggs, and then if I want a baby later, I can figure that out at the time. So that was the thought process I had.
That's a very visionary of you. At 21, I was definitely not in that mindset. I knew nothing about fertility because it was not, or egg freezing. It was not part of my family discussions, my education at school. So it was something I didn't even imagine going through down the line.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice, in my opinion, to introduce this topic at school. You're right, because some of these decisions can be made early on. 21 is very early, and at this point in time, women who freeze their eggs, probably they have medical issues. Because it's so early, you have another 6, 7, 8 years to make those decisions.
Okay, good to know.
But if you had done it, honestly, there is no downside. You have just the most beautiful and the most healthy eggs waiting for you in the freezer for the time where you meet that guy that's so difficult to find in Dubai, by the way. So I would say that at that age, it's not required. But if you have the option and the capacity to do it, I would say why not?
Interesting. Okay, next question is how to prepare for egg freezing.
If you're going for a round of egg freezing, the basic rule is to be healthy.
Okay.
Healthy in all aspects, which means eating a balanced diet, sleeping well, quitting smoking, quitting drinking if you drink, because whatever you put in your body is nourishing all your cells, including your egg cells. Okay. So if you want to improve the quality, you need to reduce stress, sleep well, eat a lot of proteins, and look after yourself overall. You can also consider taking supplements. There are very good fertility supplements to improve not egg quantity but egg quality. One of them is called CoQ10. It's a very powerful antioxidant and can help prepare for a round of egg freezing or IVF treatment.
What is the success rate of egg freezing?
That's a tricky question because you at 29 and me at 37, we don't have the same success rate. Your eggs are supposed to have a better quality than mine at your age. So I would give you a few numbers. but you need to remember that age is a big determining factor, and then lifestyle, obviously. But at 35, if you have, no, below 35, between 30 to 35, I would say, if you have frozen 9 eggs, you have 70% chance of a live birth.
Okay.
At between 35 and 37, if you have frozen 10 eggs, you have a 70% chance of a live birth. And then as you age, it drops, and even faster. Above between 38 and 40, it would take you 16 eggs to have the same probability, 70% of a live birth. Okay. So it takes you more eggs to have the same probability of a live birth as you age, because the quality of your eggs is not the same anymore.
Okay. And what is the cost of storing eggs? Because I have a friend who was thinking about it, same as me, like super proactive. But then the cost of storing the eggs was what put her and her friend off, because both of them are like, we're done with men. We're just going to freeze our eggs and see what happens. So that's what their plan was. And then when they were researching it, the cost of freezing is what put them off at the end.
So there is cost of freezing, and there is the cost of storage.
Oh, yes. The storage.
The storage.
Yes.
It varies between one clinic to the other, but typically it's about 2,000 to 3,000 dirhams per year.
Okay.
Knowing that the first year is typically free, it's included in the egg freezing package. So starting year 2, this is the cost. What we're trying to do at 𝐸𝐶𝐵, and that's going to be rolled out soon, is to allow women to pay on a monthly basis, like your 200 dirham, like storage fee. It's like your Netflix subscription. Pay for it and don't think about it, instead of like every year having to make that kind of not significant, but it's
a lot of sum still.
Yeah, payment. Just to make it more accessible to women. I understand, like, you paying rent for your eggs basically, which is, I mean, you don't even know if you're going to use them, but I still believe that having them there as a backup plan is just completely worth it.
And are there any harmful habits or lifestyle in general that would directly affect the health of the eggs, and in general, not just for freezing them? So I think you touched on this before, just to have a healthy lifestyle, but is there anything you can do specifically that's like really harmful to the eggs in your body? Yeah,
obviously, it's the usual suspects, which are like processed food, junk food, unbalanced diets, drinking, smoking. All of that ages everything in your body, including your eggs. Drugs. So yes, what's recommended is generally like trying to lead a healthy lifestyle, exercising, keeping like weight level that's healthy as well. All of this is just good for anything in your body, including your ovaries and your eggs.
So does the process of egg freezing from start to finish affect the anatomy of a woman, other than obviously having less eggs in your system?
Actually, I'm going to first correct what you say. Having less eggs in your system, not exactly true, because women tell me, okay, if you collect my eggs, then I have less eggs in me, I'm less fertile. But actually, what you need to know is, like, on a given month, your body grows one egg to ovulate, but there are a bunch of small eggs in that cycle that cannot grow because your body does not produce enough hormones, and all of these eggs will be discarded at the end of the cycle. You don't lose one egg during the cycle, you lose a bunch of them.
Oh, I didn't realize.
One ovulates, matures, become the dominant egg, and the tiny ones are there, not used, and will all go to waste.
Oh, so I had no idea.
So the egg freezing is the process of saving them. So actually, you don't diminish your fertility by freezing your eggs, because no matter what, these eggs are going to trash.
Okay. I never knew that. I always thought it was one egg, like every month.
No, because obviously if we were born with 1 million eggs, we would still have tons.
Exactly.
If we lost only one per cycle.
Okay.
So it's a bunch.
Interesting. Do you know how many on average?
No, I wouldn't. I don't have that on the top of my mind, but it's definitely not one. And the egg freezing process is just saving eggs that you're going to waste anyway. So you don't, that's not changing your egg reserve.
Okay. Interesting.
When it comes to your anatomy, and this is a question that I get a lot, especially from Arab women, is how does that impact their virginity? So the standard egg freezing procedure implies to go through your vagina to collect the eggs from the ovaries. As much as the doctors try to not break the hymen, it's a risk if you want to preserve your virginity.
Okay.
But there are also two other retrieval procedures for women who really don't want to take any risk with their hymen, which is an abdominal or rectal retrieval.
Okay.
And not all doctors do it, but at OSF, that's what we're trying to do. If you have any specific requirements, such as preserving your virginity, we can definitely recommend you to go to a certain clinic, to a certain doctor, to explore the other two approaches when it comes to egg retrieval.
Okay. Interesting. And then what would it be like from the abdomen? Is it those, like, what are they called? You know, it's just a little circle.
It's a small incision.
Yeah.
To access the ovaries.
Okay.
Obviously, it's more invasive than vaginal retrieval because it's still a surgery, while the standard egg freezing approach is called a procedure. It's not a surgery.
Okay.
So the next day, you barely know that it happened. Like, there is absolutely no impact on your, I would say, body. But yes, this is more invasive, obviously, because it implies cutting through the layers of skins.
Okay. Interesting. I'm learning so much from you. I love it. You know, Ozempic and Mounjaro and all of these injections are all the rage right now. So I have a friend who's trying to get pregnant, and the doctor put her on Mounjaro specifically to help with that. So I know that you're in the egg freezing. So let's say there's a woman who's on Mounjaro or Ozempic. Will it affect the quality of the eggs, or will it help, or anything like that?
Okay. I heard about that rumor about Ozempic babies, that trend on social media a few months ago, and I was shocked because first I thought it was fake. Honestly, I'm like, okay, what does it have to do with your ovaries? But I researched, and actually it's a very interesting trend, but also you need to be aware of the risks. So the first thing about taking Ozempic, Mounjaro, and how it affects your fertility. Some of the women got pregnant when they were on birth controls.
Yeah.
So the reason why they did get pregnant is because those drugs slow down emptying of your stomach. So the oral contraceptive is not absorbed the way it should be, and it does not work, and that's why you get pregnant.
Okay.
That's on one side of the answer why this is happening for women who are on birth controls. The second situation is women who are not on birth controls but have fertility issues, have been struggling to conceive, and suddenly they are on these drugs and they get pregnant. And again, there are not tons of research, but this is the assumption, and obviously doctors and specialists are investigating this and conducting research now on those drugs related to fertility. But what is the first assumption is like basically by losing weight, you improve your fertility. That's what we were discussing, being overweight or being on the obese simply just makes you infertile because you don't ovulate, because your eggs are not healthy. So those drugs, by fixing the root cause of infertility, which is like being overweight, can improve your fertility and get you pregnant. That being said, I also read that those drugs are not compatible with pregnancy. So from the moment you get pregnant, you need to go off this medication.
Okay.
Because that put the pregnancy at risk. So it's not completely like a walk in the park. You take Ozempic or Mounjaro and then you just getting pregnant with no risk. You need to be very careful when you do that.
And let's say there's somebody who's thinking of egg freezing that is on these Mounjaro, Wegovy, Ozempic medications. Should they get off it to then get into the egg freezing journey, or does it not matter if they're on it?
I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't be able to really like provide medical advice. I'm going to refrain from doing that. I believe that if you are on those drugs, you need to disclose that to your fertility doctor before beginning. Like, there are reasons why you're on the drugs. Many women are trying to lose weight, and those drugs have proven to be effective. But whether it's these drugs or thyroid drugs or contraceptives or anything that you're taking, this obviously can impact the cycle, and you should disclose it and discuss it with your doctor.
Okay, yeah, because that was the next question I had about even being on birth control. So that's the answer, to disclose it to the doctor.
Yeah, typically it's recommended to stop it.
Okay.
I was on birth control when I started my 𝐼 journey, and I was told that we would have a better outcome by because your ovaries are sleeping because they have been on birth control for so many years. So just having a natural cycle, letting them like ovulate again is recommended. But again, same thing, I would say you should disclose all of those things to your doctor to see what's the right approach for you.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. This has been such an enlightening episode with me learning so much.
Okay.
And now we'll go to the theme of the podcast, which is, how did you end up doing this in the first place? You know, like, I know you went through your own egg freezing journey. Are you comfortable to share more about that?
Yeah. It all started with a test, and a friend dragged me to take that test, and I will not thank her enough, because out of the countless gynae routines that I've done for the past 15 years, no doctor recommended that I test my AMH, which is my egg reserve. And like, when receiving the results, I freaked out because obviously I was 34 already. My egg reserve was on the decline. And then I'm told that even the quality, that cannot be tested, by the way, but also will significantly decline in my mid-30s. I was already there. So it was, after the panic, I think it was a wake-up call that I needed to do something now rather than later. And I remember that I thought about freezing my eggs a couple of years before that, but just as an elective procedure, not because I was in my mid-30s. But my mom kind of told me that I should not do things that are out of the normal path.
Yeah.
And I think she didn't mean any harm, but she's like, just meet a guy, get married, and have kids like everybody else. So I called her and I'm like, you seen, I told you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, just go for it, but don't tell anyone.
So there's like a little secret.
Yeah.
Culturally, you are Arab, right? So culturally, it's like so shameful, and like, it's almost like admitting that you didn't find somebody, because everyone gets married so young in the Arab culture, you know? So
the thing is, now when I ask even non-Arab women to come and share their stories on social media, even them, they guarded about the egg freezing journey. I feel like as women, we are supposed to provide children. Like, it's just a given. No matter, maybe it's even stronger in Arab society, but I would say, honestly, it's commonly assumed, regardless of the nationality.
Yeah, that's so true.
And somehow, if you're not capable of doing it naturally, you have failed as a woman, which is complete nonsense. And eventually, I came to think about that on a different level. Then there was my medical path, but then there was, actually, it's my right to decide how I want to live, what I want to talk about, what options I want to give to myself. And when I learned that actually 50% of infertility comes from men, and honestly, this is absolutely not known. And the assumption, even when you go to a doctor because you're married and you're struggling to have a child, the first person they want to test is the woman. And then when they're done with testing you inside out, then, oh, maybe that's him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I have a good friend of mine who now, they're a young couple, they got married, they are trying to start for a family. And she's like, oh, I'm doing these tests. And, I'm like on the other side of the line. I'm like, you got this, girl, And then I'm that kind of friend who will ask the questions that people don't usually ask. So I was like, did you test him too?
Yeah.
You're going through all this, it takes two to tango. So, so, and they did. So I was just really happy for her. But yeah, I do agree. I feel like it should be both. If you're planning to start a family, it's not just the woman who should be under scrutiny and all these checks and tests.
So to me, like, I think I'm more passionate about the education, the access to testing, than I am about egg freezing, because egg freezing is just a personal decision. It's something you want to do, you need to do, you don't want to do, that's up to women. But what I've been very vocal about is that we should all have the options. So informing women, testing them, providing them the information is just so critical, and that's what led me with my co-founder to build 𝐬𝐫𝐶, not to impose my vision of what your story should be or what your path should be, but if you need it, it's there, it's available, and it should be more affordable, more convenient, more transparent. That's what we stand for, and that's the root, I would say, reason of building 𝐬𝐫𝐶.
Yeah, and you mentioned you were 34 when you did your test, and now you mentioned you were 37. Yeah. So in the last 3 years, you've built this company.
Yes.
Co-founder.
Yes, just because I wish I knew earlier. I wish, the conversation was easy to have with my family, with my friends. Even after freezing my eggs, I didn't tell people immediately. I did it with another friend who was going through the same path, my age, similar stories. But then I held back just because I'm like, okay, it's done, but I'm not going to brag about it. And then eventually I realized that my story was helping so many other women understand the process, the implications, the benefits, that honestly, the egg freezing part was not that difficult medically. It was pretty straightforward. I struggled more going to the dentist to remove my wisdom tooth than I did with my egg freezing. I mean, from my body perspective. And that's when I was going all out on social media, on podcasts, on during events, just making sure that as women, we're part of the solution. We educate each other, we build that community, we advance our own health, because if we leave it to an industry that's not really tailored for the society changes that we're going through, then it's not going to happen as fast as we deserve that to be.
And you mentioned that for you personally, with your physical aspect, that taking out your wisdom tooth was harder. So what's the process like when you are egg freezing? Because I know there are needles involved. Like I've seen, like, you know, the videos on social media where they're...
I've done one of those, actually.
Yeah, so what is involved in the process?
Again, I want to say it was a walk in the park for me.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. But I don't want to dismiss so many other women that will experience like hormonal symptoms, that will become emotional, bloated, that will be very difficult for them to handle. But to me, it was not the case. So, and the process is the following. On the second day of your period, you get to the clinic, they do a scan, some lab tests, and they put you on a hormone injection protocol for the next 12 to 14 days. As I mentioned earlier on, during that cycle, you have one egg that grows and ovulates, but you have a bunch that cannot grow because your body does not produce enough hormones. So we're going to help those eggs to grow because, as I said, they'll be wasted anyway. So let them grow using these hormonal injections. And basically every day you inject yourself in the fat of the tummy. It looks impressive, but it's a tiny needle. Press it and go with your day as if nothing. During the same 12 to 14 day, you'll be asked to come back to the clinic 4 to 5 times to do a monitoring appointment, which is a scan to check how well the eggs are growing. When they reach the right size, they'll tell you this is your trigger shots to take 36 hours before and come back in 36 hours to collect the eggs. You come to the clinic, you put under general sedation, which means you're sleeping, but you're breathing by yourself. There is no tube or whatever. The procedure is very fast, 15 minutes. The doctor will go through the vagina with an ultrasound and collect every single egg that your ovaries managed to grow, take them immediately to the lab to be frozen at a very, very low temperature. And that process will stop the aging of the eggs while the rest of your eggs continue aging. You wake up probably a little bit later. They keep you for another 30 minutes to 1 hour to just check you're okay, and they send you back home to rest. So the only downtime is the last day.
Okay. And this is my final educational question. Before I get to know you about your life, in the thawing process, I've heard horror stories. Like, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, you know, and I've listened to women who have gone through the journey of for egg freezing, IVF later on. So what is the success rate of the thawing process? Do you lose a lot of eggs when you thaw them out?
Actually, no. So the egg freezing technology has evolved. And actually now there is a process called vitrification that's flash freezing the eggs that allows them to survive thawing way better than it did before. So on average, the thawing success rate is 90%, 90.
Okay.
But doesn't mean that all eggs will lead to a pregnancy, because once they thaw them, then they inseminate them, and then the success rate becomes 75%, which is still really good. But then you have an embryo, and on the embryo, you run genetic testing to make sure that you rule out all the embryos with genetic issues or that could lead to miscarriage. And that's where it becomes interesting, because the older you are, the higher chances that the embryos have an issue because your eggs are older. So that's where not all of the eggs are usable. And that's where you need 10 to have a 70% chance of a live birth.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. You've educated me so much, and I'm sure everyone who's tuning in is going to feel exactly the same way. But I'd love to know the story behind the person and how they got to where they are. So if we were to press pause on your life right now, if we were watching a movie, what does it look like?
Right now, this is not the most exciting part of my life, I would say. There is a lot of work, a lot. I was not the kind of person who knew that I would become an entrepreneur, in all honesty. I was not prepared for that journey. I jumped into it without knowing the implication, which is not only a lot of work and almost no weekends. I think I didn't take a full day off for the past 2 years, meaning that I travel, but there is my laptop literally everywhere with me, which is bothering everybody who goes on a vacation with me as well. So there is a lot of work. There is also a lot of fighting. Behind the scene of 𝐬𝐫𝐫, obviously, you deal with so much problem and challenges every day. You push the boundaries. You literally have to remove every hurdle to get there. And I would say that's the most difficult part. So trying to look after my mental health, because I'm not going to get through that journey if I don't look after myself.
Of course.
Trying to exercise. It's a lot of shoots as well. Like, I didn't realize that because as an employee, I was always doing things, but I was not the face of the brand. I was not vocal about the companies I was working for. I was doing my job, and that was the end of it. But now you're not only delivering, I don't know, a project, you're building a story. You need the story to be out there. You need to be heard. So it's a lot of, I would say, shoots, networking. You need to build this relationship. And I was never like that. So it's also getting me out of my comfort zone and making me do things I would have never thought I would be doing in my life. And finally, the tiny part is I'm trying to keep a bit of fun in all of this.
Of course.
Traveling, meeting with friends. I think the part that's really missing and I need to work on is dating. I've been so lame at that. Also, going out, it's so demotivating. I feel like Dubai has changed so much compared to 10 years ago. It has become very boring for me to date, to the point where I need a strong reason to dress up and get to a restaurant and sit in front of somebody that I don't know. It's become like I used to like really be very casual about those things and take any opportunity to like meet somebody. Now I don't have a lot of time, so I'm more guarded and protective of my time.
Oh, definitely. And I feel like with everything that you have achieved, it's going to take a very self-confident, settled person to be like, yes, I'm here to fully support her and not be jealous of you, compete with you, or anything like that. You know, because I have a career that is very male-dominated, and you're in tech, so it's similar. And I feel like we align in those ways. So it's going to take a unicorn.
I was
you know,
about to say that word. Like, if there are some unicorn around you, please feel free to make the intros. I don't know any.
Girl, I'll let you know. So yeah, but inshallah, it all works out for you with whatever it is that you put your energy towards. You mentioned your mental health. Are you like in therapy or anything, or just taking the time for yourself and doing what you need to do?
I'm not, but I have considered it. And every time I have a meltdown after a day of work, I'm like, I need therapy.
Okay.
For my sanity, but for the sanity of people around me as well, because you, as an entrepreneur, it's your baby, if I may say that, and your standards are much higher than anybody else. It's never enough. It's never good enough, and you need also to tone it down. And
yes, I feel you.
Like, sometimes I get carried away, and then I need to really take a step back and realize that it's affecting people around me, including myself, but I haven't made the step to go on therapy. I think it would help me, and it would help anybody to understand better yourself and what are the triggers that get you on that like mental health breakdown, where you could just preempt it and approach it differently, because this will continue happening every day. Has its own challenge, and what you can do only is to try to better yourself. And sometimes it takes an external person to show you the path, the same way you're showing path to other people. It's unfortunate I haven't found the time, but I would definitely consider it. I don't feel like the stigma around that, just having healthy conversation with somebody who can shed light on your journey and bring insights you wouldn't have thought about is very important.
Thank you for sharing that, and even being vulnerable with, being comfortable with, you would be open to exploring the idea. So anybody who's listening, send us all your therapist numbers.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, exactly. So if we were to press rewind on your life, what was your childhood like?
I think it was marked by dilemma. I grew up in France. I was born there. But I grew up in a traditional Arab household, because I'm from Algeria. And obviously my parents held onto their beliefs and their traditions very tightly, which I respect more today than when I was a teenager. And it felt that it was no fun. I was brilliant at school. I would say, like a good kid, but I wanted more than just the traditional path. And yeah, it created probably a lot of clashes and debates. I was not the kind of person who would not ask why and just do. So I was always challenging the statu quo, even if it meant that I was at odds with my parents. But something where we were very much aligned is like being successful and working hard at school. I think coming from a very, very modest and humble background, and my parents being, especially my dad, blue-collar worker, I was set on the path of being disciplined and working hard and trying to make a better life for myself and for my family. So they instilled that in me, which I will always be grateful for. But at some point I had to break free and make my own mistakes and explore and try. And it's only later in life where I'm like, actually, now I appreciate some of the things that they kept saying were important: family values, loyalty, honesty, just respect for yourself, for others, all of those things that were so boring.
Yeah, at the time when you're younger, they're like so boring.
Oh, MG, like I'm watching those series. I want to be crazy like everybody else.
Exactly.
And now looking back, I'm like, it's so important. It keeps you grounded. It makes you make the good choices. And when you compare your life to people that were with you in high school, somehow you know that this education also got you where you are. Even if there was moment of pain and clashes, those were important moments and defining moments.
1,000%.
Yeah, but at some point you have to break free and do what you have to do. Keep the best of your education and continue building on it, I would say.
Exactly, and you've done exactly that. Yeah. So, and then you said you were working in finance and you studied finance before. What was that like?
It was, I would say, a mix of feelings and experiences. I gave me my first opportunity to go abroad, so I moved to New York when I was 24.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that and have the means to do that had I not been in finance, which we know was and still pays quite well. So first, I enjoyed those opportunities to live experiences and in places where I've never been before. Like I had to put some distance between me, my family, my friends, physical distance, and reinvent myself there. It was literally the best years of my life personally. Just meeting new people, and you can be whoever you want to be. So you're not limited. You're not Torkia from school, and she's Algerian, and her parents are like that, and this is what is expected from her. You are Mimi. That was my nickname back then.
Oh, I love it.
And people see you from another light, and you see yourself from a different perspective as well.
Exactly.
Because it's just diversity that creates and shapes you at the end of the day. So first, I was very, very grateful for these opportunities. Then I moved to Dubai again, still in banking. And then, like, in my late 20s, I realized that it was limiting. First, you just young, and being taken seriously as a woman in this industry is challenging, I would say. You have to work twice harder to just be visible. It's like a factory. It's like hundreds of people, and leaving your mark or making an impact is very difficult. It's all processes, and you have to follow the guidelines. And even when you suggest new ideas, it would take you 3 decades to be in a position where you can be in the driving seat, and a lot of sacrifices. And I think I didn't see anymore the value of what I was doing, and I didn't see myself staying there any longer, and I quit because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was looking for meaning, and I was also looking for a place that valued a talkative, challenging, non-conforming woman.
Yeah.
Like
story of my life.
It's not banking. It's a very traditional industry. It has a lot of pros, and it taught me a lot. But at some point, you need to be ready to walk away, because you have literally reached the limit of what you can achieve within that industry.
And how did you come to Dubai?
Okay, that's also very...
Are you comfortable to speak about it?
Yeah. Now I'm very comfortable, but
all right.
Looking back, it sounded crazy. I was done with my contract in New York. I didn't have a job, and I had never been to Dubai before. And with a friend who had just graduated, as I was coming back from New York, we didn't want to live in France. I think we were like, even especially after New York, I was looking for like diversity, international exposure, and we wanted to go east, but we didn't know if we wanted to go to Singapore, to Dubai. Singapore seemed to be like not so aligned also with our Arab roots. We wanted also a place where being an Arab was like valued, was appreciated than like France nowadays. So we got convinced that we should go to Dubai, but we never visited that. So we booked a one-way ticket.
Oh, nice.
We arrived, we had one night in a hotel, no accommodation, no car, no friends.
Okay.
It was like another adventure. That was really nice back then, because you would meet so many people, you would build connections, friendship. It was a very down-to-earth place to be, less focused on like showing off things and all of that. Yeah. It was really relatable, really fun, really tolerant. So we had that combination of everything, like East and West. And yeah, we set grounds, we looked for jobs, we both found jobs.
Nice.
And then we just, got our own accommodation and moved on to the next stage of our career and our lives. So it was really, really fun. Probably one of the best memory. Very wild as well. And you never knew what to expect back then, but I enjoyed myself a lot.
So if we were to fast forward in your life, what do you envision for your future?
I think about that all the time. Nice.
You're like me.
Yeah, I'm a dreamer, so I like to overthink things. Doesn't mean that they happen, but if we have to press fast forward, I would say that I would like to be at the helm of like a very successful company that's at least a regional player, if not a global one, providing women with health solutions, innovative path. I would love to still run that, but at a way bigger scale than I'm doing now. That would be probably the biggest achievement of my life, and I would be so proud to be at that stage. And that's what keeps me going, thinking about that. And at the same time, I want to stop sacrificing my personal life, find balance in everything I do. Now it's work, but I love my work, so it feels less work than other people. But I would love to introduce more balance. I would love to have a sexy husband.
That helps. It's just fun.
Yeah, to get me distracted, 2 beautiful kids, be a model for them. My parents are getting older. I would love for them to get to know their grandkids.
Yeah.
I would love to have that job, but also have the freedom to spend 6 months in Dubai and 3 months in Paris and 3 months in New York. Like that would be like the dream setup for me, to own my time and decide where I want to spend it and with whom I want to spend it. I also, during this journey, I'm meeting so many amazing women from all paths of life, from all backgrounds. I would love to continue to nurture this relationship, this friendship, and be in a place where I can support. I've received so much support. You inviting me here, I'm so grateful for you giving me your platform. And I've had amazing women around me, like opening doors, connections, and I would love to be in a position where I can return the favor and support female entrepreneurs, invest. So yes, that's where I would want to be, and I need to manifest it as hard as I can.
I love that for you. And you know what? It's just a gut feeling, but I'm pretty sure you're going to get at least 95% of this.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Just keep going and doing your thing. And, everything is written at the end of the day, like Nasib, but also you have to make yourself available for that. And I feel like you are taking the steps to actively make that happen. So inshallah. Yeah, minus the dating part, but it's okay. We'll see who watches this podcast and is worthy of you. I'll do like a vetting process.
Yeah, people can leave their number at the end.
Comment section. Thank you. But thank you so much for sharing. You have not only educated me, but educated whoever is listening. And to hear your story behind everything that you have done. In just 3 years, you've done so much. At least for me, I feel like
it's a life in itself, actually.
Exactly. So hats off to you, mashallah.
Thank you so much.
And for everybody tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned a lot. Let me know in your comments below if you have any thoughts, questions, numbers, but just for Torkia. And here's a sneak peek for next week. What do you do to press pause?
And the way I noticed that is I can lie to skip.
I'm like, no,
it's a risky one. To do some retail therapy.
I love rotting on the couch. We did not have a wedding. There's once a month where I have a do nothing day.
It's like I had like thousands of knives stabbing.
Thank God it was private. I'm gonna make mistakes now. Literally, if I want to have a big cry in the middle of a restaurant, I will do it.
I want to meet your mom one day.
I think if I wasn't married, I think I would still be a blocking ghoster. No forgiveness. Money will fix everything.
I love doing that. I love just even going to do some retail therapy.
Unless I really like you and my mom likes you, you're not coming over. I'm on a digital detox. See you later.